Welcome to Lifelines, the radio program of the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation. I'm your host, Micaiah Bilger, Education Coordinator at the Federation. Today, we'll welcome a very special guest, Kurt Kondrich, who is a Pennsylvania advocate for children with special needs. He'll talk about his own special needs daughter and about the disturbingly high number of special needs babies who are aborted. But first, let's take a look at the news. Philadelphia abortionist Kermit Gosnell is on trial this month for the murder of 7 newborn babies and a female patient. Gosnell operated an abortion facility that investigators described as a house of horrors. He allegedly made millions of dollars by using broken and unsterilized equipment and untrained staff to perform illegal late-term abortions on vulnerable women. He's charged with delivering 7 late-term babies alive and then stabbing them in the neck to kill them. One of his staff members testified that Gosnell jokingly said one newborn was big enough to walk him to the bus stop. The Philadelphia abortionist trial is expected to continue for several weeks through April. Pennsylvanians have the chance to opt out of abortion funding through the federal health care law. Abortions will be covered in the new health insurance exchange program in Pennsylvania unless our state passes legislation to opt out of abortion funding. These health insurance exchange programs will be subsidized by government money. Pennsylvania Senate Bill 3 and House Bill 818 would add our Commonwealth to the list of 21 states that have already passed opt-out legislation. Research shows that abortion rates increase greatly when abortions are publicly funded. The Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation encourages people to contact their local legislators and ask them to support Senate Bill 3 or House Bill 818. To find contact information for your legislators, visit our website at www.paprolife.org and click on the button Contact Officials. Special pro-life educational town hall meetings will be held all across Pennsylvania in April. Staff from the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation will stop in 12 towns to share important information about the fight for preserving the right to life. Topics will include the Affordable Care Act and its effects on abortion and healthcare rationing, Roe v. Wade, the Kermit Gosnell trial, and ways to effectively communicate the pro-life message. To find out if a pro-life town hall meeting will be held near you, call the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation at 717-541-0034 or email lifelines, LIFELINES, at paprolife.org. Show your support for the right to life on April 24th by wearing a pro-life message. April 24th is National Pro-Life T-Shirt Day, a special day for pro-lifers across the United States to raise awareness about the millions of preborn babies whose lives have been destroyed by abortion. Participants are encouraged to wear a T-shirt with a pro-life message to school or to work. Mark your calendar for April 24th and spread the word about why there's always a reason to choose life. For more pro-life news and information, visit our website at www.paprolife.org. And now to our special guest. Kurt Kondrich is a Pennsylvania father of a daughter with Down syndrome. A former police officer, Kondrich now works to raise awareness about the genocide of Down syndrome babies by abortion. His mission is to help people see the priceless gift that people with special needs are to society. In 2011, the Kondrich family received the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation Leadership Award in recognition of their service. Welcome to the show, Kurt.
Thanks, Micaiah. It's a pleasure to be here, and I appreciate you allowing me to share my message.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate your taking the time to talk with us. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself and your family.
Okay, I have a wife, Margie, and a son, Nolan, who's 14, and our daughter, Chloe, who will turn 10 in May. And Chloe was born in 2003. My wife and I did not have any prenatal testing. We knew we were having a little baby girl. We had named her Chloe, and when Chloe was born, we were both 40 at the time, and the doctors looked back and forth at us. It was kind of a sterile type of thing. Chloe had emergency C-section during her delivery, and the doctor walked over to us and told us that Chloe had characteristics of Down syndrome, and almost in a very kind of a cold, harsh way. And I looked at him and I said, "Can I hold Chloe?" And he responded, "Oh, you want to hold her?" I said, yes, please bring her to me. And he brought her over, and it was at that time I looked at my daughter and I saw she was a beautiful child, and I was excited, and that put us on the path that we're on today.
Sure. Now, for those of us who might not be too familiar with it, can you explain a little bit about what Down syndrome is?
Down syndrome is it's addition of the 21st chromosomes. A lot of people call it the love chromosome because individuals with Down syndrome have a lot of purity and love within them. So it's a duplication of the 20. They have an extra chromosome. It's the 21st chromosome. As a matter of fact, last month on March 21st, that's World Down Syndrome Day, and it's on that day because of the 21st chromosome. And it does have some characteristics of developmental delays and other things, but every child who has Down syndrome is like every other person. They're completely different. They're completely unique. They're completely, beautiful with unique gifts and unique attributes. And so that's I always focus on Down syndrome is not a disability, but it's a person with different abilities.
Sure. That's neat. Now, how would you describe your daughter Chloe? Maybe if you had 3 words to use to describe her, what how would you do that?
Beautiful little angel.
Oh,
You gave me 3 words. I could go on forever, but
I
that's
bet.
what she is. She's a beautiful child who is. Chloe is right now finishing up her fourth grade year in her neighborhood school. She's reading at a fourth grade level and excelling in many, many areas.
Okay. Now, going on and talking about abortion, the abortion issue, I understand there's quite a few babies when they were prenatally diagnosed with Down syndrome or that they are aborted. Can you talk a little bit about that? What are the statistics?
Absolutely. After Chloe's birth, I had kind of a transformation myself. We received early intervention services, which were incredible. They really, when Chloe from birth to 3, which really gave her this foundation that she's excelling right now. But it was during that time I realized from talking to people that not many children with Down syndrome were being born, that there were not many children being referred into the early intervention system. And I discovered the reason was the increase in advances in prenatal testing was causing people to look upon these children as defective and as not as desirable. So they were choosing to abort them and get rid of them because, like I said, they were being labeled as individuals who were not desired to be here and were not seen as perfect human beings. So that just really got me going and put me on this mission I'm on now to make sure that people see these children as what they are, a priceless gift, and as really Chloe, I can honestly say, is as perfect as a child that I've ever met throughout my course of my lifetime.
Wow. Now, I read a lot of blogs and a lot of news stories, and one of the blogs that I came across recently was by a doctor who described abortions of babies who've been pre-diagnosed with say Down syndrome or another genetic disorder as eugenics. That this is modern day eugenics. I guess would you agree with that? How would you respond to that?
I totally agree with it. It's absolutely eugenics. We're talking about a group of individuals who through prenatal testing and abortion have a termination rate of 90+%. I often tell people if my daughter was a field rat, people would be petitioning down the United Nations if they were killing off 90% of them. But it is eugenics, and with genetic testing rapidly advancing, I challenge people to say, well, who's next? What if they have a genetic test for autism, a genetic test for depression? If some people believe there's a genetic link to homosexuality, what if they were to identify that and use it for a 90% termination rate? I can imagine that there people would be inflamed by it, and
Mm-hmm.
it is definitely eugenics. And as a part of history, Micaiah, it was the Germans, the first people that the Germans came for back during the late 1930s when they began their eugenic movement were the disabled. The first places they emptied out and sent away to concentration camps were the disabled, and then after that, we were able to dehumanize those people. They moved on to, as we well know, others, and after the slaughter of millions, World War II was finally brought to an end. But it is definitely a eugenic movement. It's a silent eugenic movement, and it's one that we definitely all should be concerned about as human beings.
Sure. I think that it's so important that we see it that way. I think a lot of people don't really realize or think about it. Think about aborting these babies, as eugenics. But that is really what it is, and it's just really disturbing, as you said.
Well, these are human beings, and here's a good visual. I tell people if a truck drove around my town, I live in the city of Pittsburgh, if a truck drove around Pittsburgh and rounded up people with Down syndrome because they were marked and took them away and terminated them, I would hope that the culture would be absolutely outraged. But this is something that's being done in darkness and privacy, and people aren't seeing it, so therefore they're not connected to it. But it is the same thing. These are individuals, these are people, these are human beings, and they are being identified, targeted, and eliminated. That's the absolute simple facts, and people do need to wake up and realize that this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this is one of, to play me be devil's advocate a little bit. I mean, I definitely do not agree with this. This is a terrible thing. But you hear some people argue that abortion is kind of a compassionate choice for a child with special needs because they say abortion would end that child's suffering. I mean, I think that's, that's totally wrong. But, how would you respond to that as, a father of a child with Down syndrome?
My daughter has no suffering. My daughter is absolute light in the world. If you have the opportunity to meet her, you'll walk away a better person. She's, like I said, my daughter will be 10 in May. Because of inclusion and early intervention, the foundation she received, she's reading at a fourth grade level. Wow. Chloe has been in TV shows. She's met politicians. She was at the governor's residence last week. The governor of our state of Pennsylvania, Governor Corbett, embraces Chloe as a priceless individual. Him and his wife Susan. It's a beautiful thing to behold. She's actually done more positive things and planted more seeds in 9 years than most people do in a lifetime. So there is no suffering. And during her time on this earth, she has taught many, I've seen it, many people about what the true meaning of life is. It's unconditional love. It's purity. It's innocence. It's love. It's things she exhibits and shows are things that this culture that we live in, this culture of death, desperately need. And I would argue we need more children and more individuals like Chloe and individuals with Down syndrome.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Now, you have a blog, don't you, where people can find out more about some of the things you're talking about, and some even some pictures, some really cute pictures that I've seen of your family. Can you tell us what is the blog?
The blog is chloesmessage.blogspot.com, and it's actually linked into my other. It's linked into it. I have connected to a blog I have. It's called Sad Sin, and I actually came up with that name in the middle of the night. I was having a dream. It was actually kind of a World War II dream. They were carting away people with Down syndrome in trains, and I woke up and I came up with the name Sad Sin, which is Stop Aborting Down Syndrome Individuals Now. And I do write a column about that, and I post the articles on there, just like I said, to raise awareness. And people do need to be asking the question of who is next and who will be targeted next. And if we can do this prenatally, then why couldn't we do it postnatally? What if somebody has a traumatic brain injury? What if somebody becomes paralyzed or becomes incapacitated and is labeled by our culture as defective or worthless at the time? Then why not get rid of them also? So we're all one accident, one illness, one disease away from becoming what the culture would mandate us as being, defective.
What are some of the misconceptions that you've seen, in our culture, and maybe even just with people you've come into contact with, when it comes to, people with Down syndrome?
Well, people with Down syndrome and all, like I said, differing abilities is a way of looking at its abilities. There's so much awesome technology and, like I said, early intervention and things out there today to help these individuals be fully included in society. There's communication devices. So we have, as a culture, developed a technology that enables these individuals to be fully included, whether it's a physical or mental disability. And we talk in the field about inclusion, but on the other side, we're taking this prenatal testing and excluding these individuals from being born. And as I said, my daughter plays baseball. Her and her brother, my son Nolan is just an awesome kid, and he's a 14-year-old better man because of Chloe, and the attributes that he shows through his patience, his unconditional love. He's the type of man that all people should wish their sons to grow up to be. But they have this inseparable bond. She has brightened his life, brightened our life, and like I said, brought so much joy into the world. And she's in her neighborhood school. She is. Like I said, she's in a dance class. She has many friends. She's very happy, very alert, brings nothing but joy to our family and to all of our family, brothers and sisters and cousins and grandparents, everybody just loves Chloe. So like I said, there's no negative things I can honestly say about this child. And if the world had more children and more individuals like this, I think we'd be a much better, much brighter place.
Now, in the past few years, there seems to have been a bit more positive light shown on, people with Down syndrome. For example, Sarah Palin and her son, and even the television show Glee. I think there was a character or two on there where that had Down syndrome, and really put them in more of a positive light. Do you see that happening more and more in our culture?
Absolutely. There's no substitute from personal connections, and that's why I take Chloe out to meet people and introduce her, and I have people look her in the eyes, and I've asked people, I say, you tell me my daughter's any less valuable than another member of society. Once you make that personal, physical, I would argue spiritual connection, then it does change the hearts of people. Compare Chloe akin to Tiny Tim. Nobody could change Scrooge's heart, nobody. But it was the child in the village who had the disability that when he was finally able to look at him personally and see, if I don't help him, invest in him, then not only is he going to die, but his family's going to die from a broken heart, and the whole town we live in is going to die. That's what made the difference. So by having these individuals out there, Chloe was on the big screen in Times Square this past fall, and was standing there in Times Square with literally thousands of people and police officers and that, watching these children with Down syndrome, their faces up on the big screen. It's awesome. It's magical. It breaks down the stereotypes of what people perceive these individuals to be. As I said, there's individuals with Down syndrome are just, they're individuals first, and they're priceless gifts to our culture.
And she's really changed your life too. And I mean, every child changes, their parents' life for the better. But she's, just as far as your career path goes, I think we maybe mentioned it a little bit before. But tell me again. You used to be a police officer.
Right. When Chloe was born, I was going into my 20th year as a police officer. I actually served in Atlanta, Georgia, down in Florida, and made my way back to Pittsburgh. Was working as a police officer when Chloe was born, and her early intervention services and the awesome people that were working with her, the therapists and that just embraced her and saw her abilities, impressed me so much that it just drove me into changing careers. I went back to school, got my master's degree at the University of Pittsburgh. I still don't know how I did that. It was God definitely guiding me through that. And through that, I am Director of Community and Family Outreach for Early Intervention Services. We're a provider in the state of Pennsylvania. I also chair the Governor's Advisory Council for Early Intervention, and through that I advocate up at the state capitol. Like I said, Chloe has built a really neat friendship and with Governor Corbett. I know it. I see our governor. He loves Chloe as Chloe and embraces her, and she genuinely loves him. It's a precious thing to see. And Chloe's been on the floor of the Senate. She's been on the cover of magazines. She's been in books. She's, like I said, been on TV shows. She actually met Sarah Palin's son back in 2008 when he was first born, when they were in Pittsburgh. And so she's had a tremendous impact. And as another thing, I'm a resource for the Crisis Pregnancy Center in Western Pennsylvania, and I've had 3 families in the past year who were connected to me through there who were considering aborting a child because of a prenatal Down syndrome diagnosis. And I've taken Chloe out to meet them. I've had them meet my son Nolan and talk to my wife Margie, and just through that personal interactions, all 3 of those families have chosen life. So she's really a lifesaver on top of all the other things she's done.
Wow, that's amazing. It's just how her life is just impacting so many people, so many other lives, really making a difference. That's just amazing. So I know there have been some even medical advances in recent years too, involving people with who have Down syndrome. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there was a time when people with Down syndrome, when they were born, they were not given medical coverage, medical help at all. Almost half of children who are born with Down syndrome have a minor heart defect. It's easily fixed. Chloe had enlarged tonsils and adenoids. And thanks to inclusion and people in the field seeing these individuals as priceless gifts, these things are easily remedied. These children are living, in 1950, the average life expectancy for an individual with Down syndrome, I believe, was like 13. Now today, they live a normal life, well, in the 60s, 70s. They're, like I said, Chloe Chloe wears glasses. It was assumed individuals with Down syndrome couldn't read. She has glasses from Lens Crafter. She goes to a regular dentist. She's orthodontist. She has, because of embracing these individuals, they're receiving the same type of health coverage and that others are. And like I said, it's the early intervention that really makes that impact, because it's working with the child. These services are relatively new speaking, and they're working with children from birth to 5, when 85% of the brain development's occurring. And by working with them and really focusing on the different developmental domains, it's making that impact that these children are able to have success throughout life. And that's what I always say. That's what you're seeing with Chloe. She is a visual for how positive and how important and critical early intervention services are for these children.
You and Chloe have been to so many different places. You've met a lot of different people. You said Sarah Palin. You meet the governor a number of times, and different celebrities. You said that she was even on Times Square this past year. Do you and Chloe kind of have a favorite memory or event or person that you really enjoy?
We've really bonded with Governor Corbett. Just this past week, we were a week ago Friday. We were invited to the governor's residence by Governor Corbett and his awesome wife Susan, and we were just us there. And the way that Susan showed Chloe around the governor's mansion, just talking to her as a young lady and showing her around, and Governor Corbett coming in and Chloe recognizing him and being very excited to see him and going over and hugging him. And then she sat at his desk and signed a book for him. And I just thought there's just such a goodness in this, that this little child has this relationship with the governor of a state of 13 million people, and they're comfortable together. And there's a lot of just joy and happiness and peace that comes out through this. And that's really been something I've really enjoyed watching, as it's developed and strengthened over the last couple of years.
Sure. Yeah, that's a really neat relationship. Chloe's photo recently was featured on the cover of a book. I haven't read the book yet. I did look it up. I do hope to read it soon. But tell us about the book, and how did she get to be featured on the cover?
I'll get you a copy of that. The name of the book is Brilliant Souls, and it's by Stephanie Winzik. And Stephanie is a nurse who lives up in Erie. She's an author, and when she became aware of the high termination rate for individuals with Down syndrome, having worked with them as a nurse, she set out to write this book. This is a second edition. The original book was called Making a Case for Life, and this is a further compilation of it, touching on the spiritual aspect of children and individuals with Down syndrome. And Stephanie wrote this book. Like I said, it's called Brilliant Souls, which I love because Chloe is a brilliant soul. She's not. I told somebody the other day, I said, my daughter, it can have her behaviors and her stubbornness, but she's not capable of malice. She's not capable of intentionally hurting somebody. And I would argue that it's probably a glimpse of how we were as human beings in the Garden of Eden prior to the fall. She doesn't have that evil intent inside of her, and therefore her light is much, much brighter down here. And the book touches on some of her connections, and Chloe actually has a connection to a fallen Pittsburgh police officer. Actually, it was 4 years ago today, as I'm sitting here, that Officer Paul Shulo and 2 other officers, Eric and Stephen, were killed in an ambush, and they were friends of mine as a police officer. And Chloe has visited with Paul's parents and told them things about Paul that only they knew. And it's really neat that she's brought an incredible amount of peace and hope to this family in the darkest of situations. As a matter of fact, Chloe recently told Paul's mother that she saw Paul in heaven holding a baby, and nobody knew this, but Mrs. Shulo had a miscarriage 40-some years ago, and she always said to her husband that Paul was with his brother in heaven, and only they knew this. But Chloe was able to see that, and I would argue because she's not jaded or ruined by the culture. She has this direct vision, this direct connection to our ultimate heavenly home.
Wow. Now, for people who are listening in, what are some resources maybe that you would suggest that for people who want to learn more about Down syndrome, about Chloe, and just how they can help to promote the culture of life?
Well, like I said, you can go on my website, Chloe's Message, but there is an International Down Syndrome Coalition. It's called the IDSC. If you Google them, you'll pull up their website. They do awesome work on a global level of promoting and bringing to light what's happening prenatally with individuals with Down syndrome. There's a group in New Zealand. They're called Saving Downs. They are an awesome group down there that are challenging the government down there in their prenatal testing policies for individuals with Down syndrome. And also the National Down Syndrome Society up in New York City, the National Down Syndrome Congress are also very strong advocates for the abilities of individuals with Down syndrome, and it's the National Down Syndrome Society that does the Times Square video every year. So those are other groups that really promote the faces and the beauty of individuals who have this extra chromosome. I would argue, I told somebody the other day, I said, if I want to see somebody who's disabled and broken and really messed up, I just go look in the mirror. So my daughter does not have, she doesn't have that brokenness that we as human beings have throughout life.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't you give us your website again one more time, so for people who are listening.
It's chloesmessage.blogspot.com, and please go on there and feel free to contact me. My contact information is on there. If I could ever be assistance, I'm going to offer myself on your show today as a resource for families across Pennsylvania, across any part of the country. I would be glad to speak and to show people that when people are pregnant with a child with Down syndrome, I find the first thing to say is congratulations, you are blessed. And I look at Chloe as just an absolute blessing. And I often wonder what I did right in my life for God to bless me with such a perfect, such a beautiful child as Chloe and my awesome son, Nolan.
Well, as you said today, she truly is a blessing. Your whole family is really a blessing as you speak out for the right to life and just the value of every single human life. And that's what we're about here too at the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation. So we really, really thank you so much for sharing today, Kurt.
I thank you, Micaiah, and thank you for the mission you're doing. And I always tell people, I said, you focus on Pennsylvania's most precious resource, which is life. And there's no greater gift that God has given us.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Lifelines, the radio program of the Pennsylvania Pro-Life Federation, the largest single-issue right-to-life organization in the Commonwealth. To learn more about us and find out more about our special guest, Kurt Kondrich, visit our website at www.paprolife.org. Again, it's www.paprolife.org. I'm your host, Micaiah Bilger, Education Coordinator at the Federation. Thank you so much for joining us today, and remember, there's always a reason to choose life.